It was one of those nights where silence and darkness seemed to swallow the world. I had decided to take the back road because it was less busy, and although the surrounding forest made it eerie, it was the shortest route home. I'd been driving for hours. The faint hum of the car radio barely broke the stillness, and my thoughts filled the void. Fatigue was starting to get the best of me, but something kept me alert, as if an invisible force whispered in my ear not to let my guard down. I had heard about legends surrounding roads like this one. There were countless stories. Strange lights, disappearances, and something people called the Rake. They said it wasn't just a monster but something that got inside your mind, attacking you in your dreams until you couldn't distinguish reality from fantasy. It was said to be a creature that enjoyed playing with your fears, leaving a scar on your soul. I always thought it was just folklore, stories born in the darkness of the internet. But that night, everything changed. Suddenly, something darted across the road in front of me. I slammed on the brakes, and the screech of the tires pierced the night. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. It moved fast, too fast to identify. What little I saw made no sense. A thin, hunched figure that moved unnaturally. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Probably just an animal, I thought, though deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. I glanced at the rearview mirror.
If you're enjoying this video, subscribe, give it a like, and activate the bell for more stories.
Nothing. Just the endless dark forest. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I turned on the radio to distract myself, but all I got was static, a grating noise that I quickly silenced. It felt as if the world had vanished, leaving me utterly alone on that cursed road. After driving for a few more minutes, I saw a small cabin by the roadside. It was dark and seemed abandoned, but something about it drew my attention. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I just wanted to feel like I wasn't entirely alone in the middle of nowhere. I turned off the engine, grabbed my flashlight, and approached slowly. The cabin was old, with broken windows and a door barely hanging on rusty hinges. The wooden boards were covered in moss, and the air around it was so heavy it felt like stepping into another world. I carefully pushed the door open, and the creak echoed inside. The interior was even more oppressive. The walls were scarred with deep scratches, as if something desperate had tried to escape. On the floor, I saw small bones, possibly animal remains, but I didn't want to inspect too closely. A strange smell lingered, a mix of damp earth and something foul. As I explored, a sudden noise broke the silence, a sharp thud. My heart stopped for a moment. The sound came from the roof. I instinctively turned off my flashlight, standing perfectly still, straining to listen. Then I heard it, slow, dragging footsteps moving above me. The steps were deliberate, heavy, and each creak of the wood sent shivers down my spine. They were directly overhead, as if they knew exactly where I was. I stood frozen, holding my breath, hoping whatever it was would move on. But it didn't. I slowly stepped out of the cabin, careful not to make a sound. But when I looked up, there it was. It crouched on the roof, staring at me. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes. God, those eyes. They were black voids, empty, as if there was nothing behind them. I felt my body freeze. I couldn't move, couldn't look away. It was as if I were trapped in its presence. The creature began to climb down from the roof, moving in a way that defied logic, as if its joints were dislocated. When its feet touched the ground, it just stood there, watching me. A grotesque smile spread across its face, revealing yellow, jagged teeth. The fear I felt was so intense I could barely breathe. It was as if my mind was fighting to comprehend what I was seeing, refusing to accept it as real. Finally, something inside me snapped, and I ran. I bolted to my car, slammed the door shut, and started the engine. But before I could drive away, the creature lunged at the car. Its claws struck the windshield with force, leaving deep gouges in the glass. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, and the car shot forward. I thought I'd escaped, but when I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw it. It was running after me on all fours, moving erratically, terrifyingly. It didn't seem like it would ever stop. Suddenly, it leapt onto the roof of the car. I could hear its claws scraping the metal as it clung tightly. I swerved, braked hard, did everything I could to shake it off. Finally, a sharp turn threw it to the ground. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw it standing in the middle of the road, watching me. Its figure slowly faded into the distance, but I knew it wasn't done with me. Then everything changed. The road vanished, the trees disappeared, and darkness consumed everything. It felt like I was being pulled into an endless void, as if the world I knew was collapsing around me. I opened my eyes and found myself in my bed. Sunlight streamed through the window, and the clock read 7 a.m. I was drenched in sweat, my body trembling, and my heart racing. But the worst part wasn't the fear. The worst part was the confusion. I had no idea how I had gotten home. The last thing I remembered was driving, trying to escape that thing. How had I ended up here? I checked my body and found scratches on my arms, as if something had tried to grab me. I stared at the clock over and over, trying to make sense of it. I reached for my phone, but there were no messages, no calls. It was as if time had frozen during those hours. For days, I tried convincing myself it was just a dream, a nightmare brought on by exhaustion. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The marks on my arms were real. The sensations, the fear. It was all too vivid to be just my imagination. Since that night, something has changed in me. Every time I try to sleep, I feel like there's something in the room, watching me from the shadows. I close my eyes, and that grotesque smile appears in my mind, as if it's waiting for me. I've read more about the Rake since then. Many people claim to have seen it, that it invades their dreams, and they can't escape its presence. Some call it a demon, others think it's a manifestation of something darker. But they all agree on one thing. Once it finds you, it never lets you go. Sometimes I wonder if I ever truly escaped that road, or if I'm still trapped in a dream I can't wake up from. The only thing I know is that the fear doesn't leave me. And every night, when I turn off the lights, I feel it there, in some corner of my room, waiting for the perfect moment to return. I may never know what was real and what wasn't, but deep down, a part of me knows the truth. Because even though no one else can see it, I can still feel its eyes on me.